Okay, let's talk about effective reviews and testimonials. Now, this does matter. It's going to allow you to improve your marketing effectiveness. It's going to pave the way for having an easier close, an easier pitch with every additional customer that you get. And it's going to establish your authority before the buying decision even begins. And this is so important. The mindset that a prospective customer comes to you with is going to make all the difference between whether or not there's objections in the sale, whether or not you're going to get resistance, or whether they're coming kind of pre-sold because they've seen a testimonial that maps exactly to their situation. I'm going to show you how to do that today. So the first piece we're going to talk about is online reviews. Even if you are mostly an offline company, online reviews absolutely matter. And then we're going to talk about how do you structure reviews, how do you structure testimonials to be most effective. So the data is clear. 93% of consumers say online reviews impact their purchasing decisions. Products with 5 reviews are 270% more likely to be purchased than those with 0 reviews. Customers are willing to spend 31% more on a business with excellent reviews. 72% of consumers say positive reviews makes them trust a local business more. A 1-star increase in Yelp leads to a 5 to 9% increase in business revenue. So not just like the number of leads, but revenue. 94% of consumers say a negative review has convinced them to avoid a business. And businesses with 9 or more current reviews earn 52% more revenue than average. Now, those are the stats. And this is why I really have a huge amount of effort in my businesses on getting reviews and publishing the reviews and keeping them current. I'm going to show you what I do in this video as well. So what are the popular platforms? You've got industry review sites. If you're in a specific industry vertical, there might be like medical or legal. There might be specific ones. But then there are also the general review platforms like Google and Facebook and Yelp. I'm not even talking about additional things like Glassdoor, which could be also a review that people look at. It's reviews given by your employees, but customers want to know, what does your team and your former team members think of you? So all of these, Capterra and G2, there are so many of those, Trustpilot, that all can do the same thing. And all of these principles that we're going to be talking about today apply to all of those. So the first question is, what's your strategy for collecting online reviews? Because most customers are doing research before they buy online. They're not necessarily calling up who do they know. That's old school. That's a great way to do it. But most of them begin their search online. And what they see about you will color everything else they think about you from that moment onward. So there's a couple things to think about here. And the first is when you're getting online reviews, timing when you ask for the review. Now, I'm going to go into a couple choices later and then show you what I do in terms of timing. But timing your request is really important because you want to get the people that you're requesting reviews from giving you the right review at the right time about the right thing. So the way that I think about doing this that's super helpful is you can draw a timeline, a customer experience timeline, going from prospect to new customer to a mature customer. And on that timeline, you can write down the turning points in each one of those, whether they're graduating from becoming a prospect to a customer, whether or not that you've just delivered something, whether or not they've given you a piece of feedback. All of those are able to be put on a timeline. And then you can circle those points on the timeline where you think it might be good to get a review. And I'm going to talk about what those points are later on, but just have that mental map in your head about a customer experience timeline and what their emotional journey is, because their emotional journey is going to both say, are they likely to give a review? And then what's the content of that review likely to be? The second point here is making the review process easy for customers. What you don't want to do is just passively wait. You should be actively asking for reviews at multiple points on that timeline that you've identified. If you just wait for them to give reviews, it'll be a tiny number. Most people are absorbed in themselves, and you've solved the problem, great, they're on to the next problem that they have. But when you stop and actually prompt them for a review, you are going to get so many more. So there's a couple of the fundamental strategies about it. So now you're getting reviews and you're also receiving reviews, and you're going to see what those reviews are, and now you have to respond to some of them. Again, we're going to back up later and talk about what you can do to engineer the right kind of reviews, but you're also going to have to respond to reviews. And the reason I put this here is because you may have existing reviews. And if so, it's a really good practice to respond to those reviews. So first of all, framing your good reviews. Think of it as like you're going to put it on your wall. If you have good reviews, take a screenshot and put a little frame around it, and that should be used in your marketing. I'm going to go into that a little bit later, how you do that, when you do that. But think about your good reviews. If you went into a retail establishment and they had hundreds of reviews on the wall with 5 stars, think about how you'd feel about the restaurant you're about to eat in or the barbershop you're about to use. If they've got all those great reviews right there, it's reinforcing your decision to go there. And it's the same thing. When you frame a review, you are reinforcing everyone's their desire to either start working with you or reinforcing that their choice to work with you was a good one. So you're going to use those in marketing. I'll just give a preview of what we do. You can take your reviews and you frame them, right? So put some branding around them and make it look pretty. Take a nice screenshot, size it appropriately, or have someone else do that if that's not the best use of your time, and then be putting those out on your social media on a consistent basis, just dripping them out so that anyone who's coming across you and they're reading some of your content, they're kind of interested in it. They also see that you get good results. And it's a nice way to show, hey, I did a really good thing for this customer. It's less braggy than saying we're the best, all this puffery that you'll see in advertising. Instead, you're letting someone else speak for you and the experience with you. So it's a nice way of marketing that is going to help with the sales process and isn't just you saying it so, someone else is saying it so. The overwhelming proof wall of reviews. Now, this can be done, as I mentioned, when you're at a retail establishment. You walk in, you see a bunch of physically framed reviews on the wall. It also works online where you can have a page. Now, it might be part of your sales page, and then you take screenshots and just put a bazillion positive reviews on that page. And it's just the overwhelming proof. It's like, oh man, I went to this webpage and there are 100 5-star reviews. Now, I do that in my e-commerce company, and you'll see that there are 500 plus framed reviews on that site if you're going to look and you're going to purchase. So we're constantly reminding people of what a great experience. Now, do we have all 5-star reviews? No, it's a 4.93 or something like that. So it's pretty good, but that's actually a good thing. It shows that that's legit. I'm not just hand selecting the 5-star reviews, but I do have that overwhelming proof that if you're going to work with us, you're going to have a great experience. Next is tactics for handling negative feedback. So you're receiving feedback. Some of it is prompted, and you're going to ask the right people at the right time, but some of it will be unprompted, and someone will say something very negative. I had a bad experience. I tried to return this product and it didn't work. They were rude. Whatever it's going to be, this is going to happen, right? It's going to happen to every business. Now, it certainly happens like in my e-commerce business where we have over the years tens of thousands of customers. Clearly, there's going to be, in any group that large, there's going to be a wacko. There's going to be multiple wackos. But in any business, you're going to get a negative review. And the question is, how do you handle it? The important thing is to address it and not just go silent, because what people can accept is that you've got mostly good reviews and then there's going to be some crazy who's going to give a bad review or someone who had a bad experience. Customers and prospects understand this, but what they don't like to see is no response. If there is a 1-star review and you've taken the time to either say, what might happen is, I don't know who you are, we've looked you up, looks like you were never a customer of ours. That's one kind of response. Or, I'm sorry that you feel this way. Here's what we're going to do to address it. Please contact us, etc. If you say something like that, then people who are going there are not going to over-index for those negative reviews. In fact, what they're going to say is, the responsiveness and the speed of a response to those negative reviews shows that someone is listening. And I've definitely experienced this working with companies doing turnarounds. And they're doing a turnaround on an existing company which has absolute garbage reviews. A bunch of 2-star average review. And when the new management comes in, what we would do is we would actually go through all of those reviews and respond to every single one of them, even if it was years old. And we would give a solution for that person. Even if it wasn't done under our watch, it was prior management. And the reason for this is that people will say, wow, now they're listening. Because some people who are doing their research will dig back into the past and see what happened. And they'll see, clearly there's a management turnover here. They're taking things seriously. And after this point, The reviews went to 4 stars, then they went to 4.5 stars, and they'll see that. Your consumer is not dumb. So by doing this process of answering every single review, you are actually making a big difference in the outcomes, even if the original review was a 1 star. So the next is, how do you leverage this? Now, you want to leverage reviews in multiple ways. And the reason why I'll get to in a moment, and how to skew those reviews towards the things that matter. You don't always just want 5 stars, great. Like if you want to think about what a bad review is, even if it's a 5-star review, is eBay seller reviews. So if someone is reviewing you and you're selling something on eBay, just go and check. It'll be like 5 stars, A++++, or 5 stars, great. That doesn't tell you anything. The fact that it's 5 stars might make you feel good, but that's actually not useful for your marketing purposes. We're going to think about using reviews because it is a marketing function in your marketing. Now, I mentioned earlier posting them on social. Also, posting your reviews on any page where you are asking someone to take an action. If you're asking them to take an action, whether it is give you some contact information, a lead, or whether it is to make a purchase, or whether it is to book a call, whatever it is, by adding the right reviews there, you're actually going to increase your performance on that page. Now, of course, test it. I'm obviously the scientific entrepreneurship guy. I'm going to say test it. But by and large, I have found that it increases conversions when you do that. The next piece is to use the review data to improve your product and services. There is a gold mine out there on your reviews. And that gold mine is people are telling you what works and what they want and what they don't like. So don't just view the 1-star and the 2-star reviews as, oh crap, I got to respond to this thing and somebody is unhappy and now I got to do something. Think of it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make sure that never happens again and you delight every other customer that comes there. And it can be something really small, right? It can be like, I didn't like the tone that they used when they communicated with me. Okay, fantastic. Now I'm going to create a style guide for when I'm answering by email, what my customer support rep needs to sound like. It's a chance to dig in and find something. So using that review to get better is one piece. The other thing is if it was missing a feature, like whether you're selling apparel or software, I liked it, but it doesn't blank. Now it's something to consider for your roadmap. I'm not saying that just because someone said, I want this, that you have to do it, but it becomes valuable data to decide what should I do. So you can improve your products, you can improve your services, and then you can also double down on things that are really working. If you're consistently seeing a theme in your reviews about what people love, then you are well off testing that as one of your acquisition strategies. In other words, using that language in your marketing because they're clearly delighted with it. Now, I'm going to leave aside, because there are other videos and trainings that I do on this, whether or not that's going to actually activate the person, because again, you have to run a scientific test to know if that's going to be true, because sometimes people care about different things when they come in to a purchase and when they have purchased, right? They came in thinking that I'm going to get this, and they actually got something a little bit different in terms of results, but they like that better. And they then talk about the better thing, but the better thing isn't why they came in the first place. So just bear that in mind, but it is a really useful source of marketing copy. You should test things when you see a pattern, because that might be the one thing that really changes how you message. So very valuable in that context. So now let's talk about my review flow. It's very much excitement-based. So in my e-commerce company, it is very exciting to people when they make the sale. We do have a social component to that, so we're giving away money to charity as a part of the sale. So it's very excitement-based. They're happy to have made a contribution and be getting something as well. And so on the thank you page, literally on the thank you page, before they've even gotten the product, I'm asking for a review. Now, this may not work for everybody, but depending on the kind of company that you have and what you're delivering, maybe it's electronic and maybe it's experiential, think about whether a thank you page request will do it. They've just purchased. This is when the excitement is highest. All the promise in the world, they've just hit the button for purchase. Because in the psychology of any purchase, you'll see this thing where someone is very excited and they make the purchase, and instantly within 10 minutes, within an hour. If they haven't gotten the thing, they're waiting for it. If it's a service to be delivered, if it's a product to be delivered, all of a sudden buyer's remorse sets in. And then there's this period of time between when the purchase happens and then when they receive the thing and they actually understand what it is and if it's good. There's a window of time which emotions are low. So if you think about that, and as I recommended earlier, you're making that timeline, that customer experience timeline, you want to hit them before or after. So in my case, I try to hit them before. And I say a thank you page request. And again, we're going to get to what I'm asking on that thank you page request. But I find that instantly is a great time to think about asking for a review. So the other thing, and this is just a little more technical trickery here. It's not trickery in a mean sense. It's just like a clever hack that I figured out. We look for reviews on multiple platforms. So if you wanted to do reviews on, let's say, Yelp and Google and Facebook, what if your thank you page or your review link always went to the same one? Well, you get a whole bunch of reviews on, let's say, Yelp, and then pretty much none on the other platforms. We actually rotate the link. So the page itself, when it loads, will rotate the link between a Google review and a Facebook review. And I actually just use a split test function, which, again, not to get too nerdy here. In a split test, you can have the web page deliver two different versions. And the normal use for that is if you're testing which one performs better. But in this case, I'm using that function and just two different versions of the page. And one says review on Facebook and one says review on Google. And then it automatically swaps 50-50. So half the people see the Google, half the people see the Facebook. I'm not really using it for a test. I'm just using it to drive people to both locations. So what happens is I get reviews on both of those platforms. So that's just another little trick that you can use in order to make sure that your reviews go to multiple places. Or you can do a three-way split test and you go, here's Google and here's Facebook and here's Yelp, and then you can just add more and more with whatever split testing platform your website is using. So that's my review flow. And I've mentioned a couple of things on this video of other trainings that I do on how to use the scientific method to actually scale your business, et cetera. A whole bunch of good stuff on that and sales and marketing and all kinds of awesome stuff in the CEO Workbench at ceoworkbench.com. So hop over there later. Now let's talk about testimonials. So testimonials are similar to reviews in that you're getting someone to say something about you. But typically in a testimonial, you are able to direct it a little bit more than with a review. And you're asking for something that will be used very often not on an online platform, but might be used in a case study, a presentation, on your website, with folks typically you've worked more closely with. So let's first talk about the psychology of testimonials. You understand what a testimonial is really all about. Because a testimonial is not about, I worked with Raj and he's awesome. Now, have I gotten those testimonials? Yes, largely the unsolicited ones, which is why there's no meat on the bones. Because if I put that on my website, I worked with Raj, he's awesome. What are you going to think about me? Well, you're going to think that someone didn't really take the time to talk more about how Raj is awesome. And what we really want to do is make sure someone fleshes that out. Because here is the critical learning point. I learned this over a decade ago, and it has been critical in making my testimonials more powerful. And that is that the purpose of a testimonial is to overcome an objection. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. The purpose of a testimonial is to overcome an objection. And that's an objection that you're going to get in sales later. So what you're doing is using a happy customer to create an asset for you, to create a testimonial, which will be used for other prospects before they buy with you. And by reading that testimonial, they will see that their objection to potentially buying from you has been answered by a real person who has actually experienced it. Because when you think about any kind of sales interaction, if I'm trying to sell you something and you're like, but will it work in this situation? But will I get value for my money? How can I trust that you? If instead you've seen an overwhelming number of testimonials that say, I was worried about X, but then when I worked with Raj, he over-delivered on it. It's just answered that right there. You feel confident that I can do what I say I'm going to do because a third party has said exactly the problem that you think is in your head. So that when you get to a sales call and my team is talking with you about what we can do for you, you're not going to have that worry. or it's going to be a very muted one. It's going to be like, hey, yeah, we've done this before, and you're like, okay, yeah, in the back of your head, it's been solved a bunch of times, and you've seen a bunch of testimonials. You can't really have that objection. So that's number one. Number two is creating trust. If you have no testimonials, like, why would anyone trust you? Unless you're going to work for free and there's no downside, why would anyone trust you? So you're creating trust with having testimonials. So just take as a given that having 0 testimonials is not an option. If you don't have any, priority number one is getting these things. It is going to make your selling life so much easier. And then there's the creation of social proof. If you think about what a testimonial shows, it shows that you have customers, ideally a lot of customers. It's kind of like when there's a nightclub and a bar and they put an artificial line, they create an artificial line, right? So there's people lined up around the block and you go and it's actually not that full. They're creating the impression that there are a lot of people who want to go here. And it's a very important psychological principle. Likewise, testimonials are related to that. Testimonials and reviews show that a lot of people have tried you. And when a lot of people have tried you, there's an implicit understanding that you're in demand. So if you have no testimonials, someone will think, well, is this business even active? I don't know. I mean, there's a contact me page, but I can't tell. Have they published on social media recently? Yeah, but that could just be some contractor offshore doing that. I don't know, are they actually doing anything? When you have customers speaking about you and those reviews are recent, remember the stats we talked about earlier, how recent reviews matter? When you get testimonials that are recent, it speaks volumes. It speaks about you having an active business. You are increasing the perceived demand for your service, and that's going to increase your ability to charge higher fees, close at a better rate. So that's the psychology of testimonials. So as I said, I'll repeat for the third time because it's so important. The point of the testimonial is to overcome an objection. So here's what you should be doing. You should think of every single objection you've had in a sales context. So just go back and whatever the objection was. Now, if you're selling face-to-face, if you're selling over the phone or video, it's much easier, right? You've got this list of objections, or you can think through all the objections. If you're selling primarily online, you can look at reviews that you've had about things that people didn't want. You can do surveys. But either way, think about all the reasons why people didn't buy and list those reasons. And those are the reasons that are going to get testimonials. So you're going to find a testimonial for every objection that you've gotten. And obviously, you do it in order of the biggest objections or the ones that cause the most sales disruption. And when you are starting to map that, you're going to start to see that people aren't raising that objection as much anymore in sales because you've answered the question. You've answered it before they've even gotten to the sales call. For instance, on the book a call page, if you've got a boatload of testimonials, you do that. Or before you have a sales presentation, you'll send them, here are some testimonials. You can choose to just have a big wall of testimonials. You can group them by whatever aspect of the business they're about. Either way, you can make sure they see them before they get on a sales call. That is going to make your life so much easier. So how do you ask for these testimonials? You know what the testimonials should say because they should map to an objection. When do you ask? So first you ask, like I do, right after delivery. That's one choice. You can say right after electronic delivery. You can say right on purchase. You can say right on delivery. It's very typical to ask right on delivery. But sometimes, as I mentioned on that happiness graph and the remorse graph, on that remorse graph of when people have buyer's remorse, you might want to wait until a little bit longer and also have an email campaign that is encouraging them to consume the product. Another time to ask for testimonials, whenever you get a compliment. If you get a compliment, let's say a customer support rep gets a compliment from a customer saying, thanks for responding so fast, or thanks for handling that so well. And you should get a percentage of those. If you don't get a percentage of compliments there, you're probably not doing a great job on your support. So you should be getting some of those. That's an opportunity to ask for a testimonial or a review. Say, would you mind? That's fantastic. I'm so happy. I'm so delighted that I could serve you well. Would you be willing to write us a testimonial or write us a review? And at that time, you can do that. And I'm going to give you in a second a format for asking. When customers refer you business, right? If they're referring you business, they're already referring because they think that you're awesome. People don't tend to refer business to companies that they think suck. So if that's the case, when they're referring you business, thanks, that's so awesome. I really appreciate it. Would you be willing to? And here's the testimonial stuff. During delivery, so this is not after delivery, but during delivery. So if you have particularly a service that you're delivering, there might be certain inflection points in the service. Now, a long time ago, I used to be an attorney, and then I ran for a while a marketing company that worked with law firms. And law firms sometimes have long periods of delivery, but we can ask for testimonials at certain stages because typically a legal matter will have certain stages to it. And people are very happy or not happy based on what those stages are. And so we picked and we chose, when do we look for a time to ask for a testimonial? And then again, before a delivery, it's totally fine. I do that as well in e-commerce. All right. So whenever you get one of these compliments or things, always be asking, what objection might this answer? Right? The objection might be, well, how do I know you're going to deliver quickly? Well, here's 10 testimonials about that. So just think about that. Anytime you get any positive feedback, what objection might this answer? So I'm going to give you some goodies. They are downloadable below. So the first is the client's experience sheet. I'm going to flip to another slide and tell you what's on it. But this is a sheet where you can collect what the client's experience was. Remember when I was talking about drawing that timeline? This is where you pick a point in a timeline and you interview a current customer, and you get this information from them in order to construct a review or testimonial. Now, I know this sounds like work. You'd rather just wait for the testimonials and reviews to come in. But the fact is, if you do that, it's scattershot. It's not doing the exact thing you need it to do, which is answer an objection. So these are the questions that we're going to be working on. So it asks, and again, the actual language for this is going to be in that download. So, go and grab that download. But the experience sheet goes over the following things. First, what was your main concern before the engagement? In other words, before hiring you, your company, what have you, what was the main concern? Like, what were you worried about? So that gets to the state of mind, because again, we're thinking forward to the next sales, and the next sales they're all going to have a concern. And if this testimonial, if this review can address the same kind of concern, because most customers have only a few concerns when they come to you. It's the 80-20 rule. It's going to be 5 things that are the majority of them. If you can speak to that when collecting this testimonial and review information, you are going to be able to speak their language. Next thing is how you delivered. And the worksheet has more specific language on this, but it's asking the question about, what was your feeling about how we delivered? Did they like aspects of your style, of your communication? An underappreciated thing is sometimes customers just want to feel loved, and they just want to feel like you're listening. And when you talk about that communication style, it protects you against every other vendor that your prospective customers had in the past where communication sucked and they felt terrible or they didn't know where things were. If you speak to communication, it shows competence. So pulling that out of the testimonial, out of the review, can really level up the whole thing. Who would benefit from your product or service? This is part of the objection handling that helps the prospective sale in the future say, this person who's already done business with Raj says that it was awesome and it would be also great for X, Y, and Z. Oh, wait, I'm an X, Y, or Z. So they're thinking to themselves, well, it worked for him. He says it's going to work for these kind of people. It's going to work for me. Again, you're handling an objection in advance. That objection being, how do I know it will work for me? Right? When you think of hierarchies of objections, the first objection is this thing going to work? And then this thing is this going to work in my industry? And then, is it going to work for me? And the more you can get to, is it going to work for me, which is an element of testimonial and then proof, then you are going to be able to overcome so many more objections. And then there's an additional comments section as well, and that allows you to capture kind of free form. What are some of the language they're using? Because you're not asking a prompting question as much as trying to get their own words in there, and that's going to be useful in your marketing. The next is a client interview call. These are a series of questions for that. And you can go through this and do a client interview call. So the other one you can just email. Here's how you can do a client interview call that's much more in-depth. And what you're trying to construct here is their full story. All right, and let me go over what that says. First, you're going to ask them what their situation was before the meeting. So you're trying to create a gap. And my friend Taki Moore has this model, what he calls stretching the gap. And there's the world before, and then there's the world you want afterwards. And what you're doing is showing in these testimonials that the person who experienced your service was here and things were not great. They made the choice to go with you, and they received the benefit that all the customers want. They won. They got it. But right now, again, they're close together, right? That's happened for them. But for you, it's far apart because this prospect knows they have the problem, but they don't trust you can get the result. So you have to first restate the problem, and that's the situation before meeting. The second was the ramifications if the problem wasn't solved. Now, you might recognize this if you got through my sales training, which is talking about bridging that or pulling that gap, stretching that gap. And that is, what if the problem doesn't get solved? Right? What will happen to them? What are the consequences of not solving that problem? So the prospect already has that in their mind. And when you get a testimonial, which says the situation before meeting, it's like, I'm going to use a marketing agency example because I used to run a marketing agency. The situation before meeting was I wasn't getting any leads and I didn't know what to do. Ramifications of the problem solved. Well, I couldn't scale my business. In fact, it was really hard. My margins sucked. I might have to lay off staff. And when you capture that story, and you put that story in a long-form testimonial, somebody else is going to resonate with that. They're going to say, that's exactly my situation. And that's what you're trying to pull out with this. This story construction is much more powerful than the sugary, it was great, exclamation point. That's not going to do anything. How they searched for a solution. Again, this is the same thing. How did your former customer, current customer, search for a solution? What did they do? I tried the following 5 things, they didn't work. I hired a shitty SEO vendor and they didn't do the work. That was their history, right? They're recounting a story, the journey to finding you, the journey to getting success with you. Concerns before starting the work. This is a really good one. And there's a specific phrase in the handout that I use, but it works really, really well. But in general, concerns before starting work is before working with Raj, I was concerned that he wouldn't be able to deliver quickly. So when you get that concern, again, that's going to be a concern, an objection that a future customer will have or future prospect will have for you. So you're getting that objection, you're pulling it out. So they're going to see themselves in that objection. Wait, I have that objection too. Like, I don't know if Raj is going to deliver in time, but if you get it, like, I was concerned that before working with Raj, he might not be able to deliver in time. And boy, was I shocked when my entire campaign was constructed in under 4 days. So you'll get that kind of feedback. And then somebody's going to say, oh, wow, 4 days. My last guy took me like 30 days and it was a piece of crap. And then I had to have him do it again. It was 60 days and they didn't launch for a long time. I was paying the retainer the whole time. This is going through their heads. And when you do this thing of saying from a former customer what their concerns were and what actually happened in the experience working together, you get that beautiful pairing, which is going to not stretch the gap. It's going to pull the gap together again for your prospect. Communication, I talked about earlier how important communication is. There's a specific question about that. And then very importantly, would they choose to work with you again? One of the best compliments that you can have is something to the effect of, I almost don't want to tell other people about this because it was so good and I don't want anyone to know so that he doesn't get full up with work. So in the retail context, in the online e-commerce context, it might be something like, we'll definitely be buying again. This will be my next pair of sneakers. That's the same kind of thing. So when someone says they're a customer for life, it means something. So that's one of the highest compliments they can have. So you go through all of these questions, and again, the specific phrasing is in the download, but these questions are what will actually get this to have the right effect on your prospects. So again, this is a summary. You're overcoming objections. You're telling a story and a journey. You're avoiding sickly sweet praise because it doesn't do anything. I mean, it's something. It's better than having no reviews, but you are leaving so much on the table if you don't do more than that. Next one we didn't really cover. I hinted at it earlier, but we didn't really cover. It's called the damaging admission. Now, I mentioned that we don't have all 5-star reviews for my e-com company. And when I did consulting, when I had a marketing agency, we didn't have all 5-star reviews. And that was okay. In fact, that was good. Because people don't believe when it's all 5 stars. There's something goes off in their head that's saying, this isn't right. Either they're only showing me the 5-star reviews, or they're cheating and these reviews are all bullshit. So you want to include a damaging admission. And a damaging admission in sales copy, I'm not going to get into sales copy, I've got other trainings on sales marketing, but in this context, it is showing that you're not perfect because people know that nobody is perfect. But you're showing that overwhelming evidence is that this is great, and sometimes things happen, and that's why we've got a 4.9 instead of a 5-star review average. So it's a way of making things much more realistic and, frankly, being fair, right? I mean, not that we necessarily care. It's like, it's getting the result, but we do care because if you're going to have all 5 stars, it is extremely unlikely that you have all 5 stars. So it doesn't look realistic. So it so happens that it aligns with reality to show something that's not 5 stars, and you're going to get a better result. Don't believe me? Test it. This is I'll have another video on this at some point in the future, but showing all 5-star reviews versus showing 4.95 or something, 4.95 is going to win. It seems more realistic. Last point, using the client's language and not your language. That is so important. We get in our heads about what language to use. And so if someone says, well, yeah, I'll give you a testimonial, just write one for me. And you've done this interview and maybe you are writing it for them. Make sure to use their language. Don't use your language, because their language is how the customer speaks. Even if it might seem like, yeah, the guy, he doesn't really speak very well. I would rather leave it in all its glorious spelling errors, etc., because that's real and raw, and people believe it. If everything looks a little too perfect, it's just like those 5-star reviews. If they're all 5 stars, it's just a little too perfect. I don't believe it, right? Is this AI? Is it airbrushed? What is it? You don't want it to be too perfect. So they have a slightly awkward sentence. Leave it in. Or just chop out that sentence, but leave the gist of it as it is. Use their language, not yours. Okay, testimonial formats. This is a hierarchy. I talked about this in another video when I talked about content creation for you and how you can generate a ton of social media content with the least amount of effort. We're going to do the same thing here. We want the maximum output for the minimum amount of effort. So this is a hierarchy. Video, audio, text with image, and text alone. All right. Why is it a hierarchy? Because if you get a testimonial in something higher on the list, all of the things lower on the list are available to you. If you get a video testimonial, you can strip out the audio and you've got an audio testimonial. And then you can transcribe it and you've got a text testimonial with a still image. Or you can have text alone. But if you're only getting testimonials as text alone, if they're just typing it in, then you're only getting one thing. When you could have four assets instead of just one. So this is the 4 for 1. You get all these assets if you start with video. Now, I know video is the hardest to get, but it gives you more leverage. So the next piece, making testimonials feel real. When you are deploying a testimonial, don't just use the client's name. Don't just say Bob Jones, or worse, just say B. Jones, or Bob. You don't just use the client's name. Ideally, because we're overcoming objections here, we want the reader, your prospective future customer, you want them to see themselves in the situation. So a testimonial has much more effect if either you're only selling to one avatar. Let's say you're only selling to laundromat owners. If that's the case and it's so clear that your product is only for laundromat owners, then perhaps you don't need this. But if you're selling something that's at all generic, and maybe you're selling to laundromat owners and gas station owners, or maybe you're selling apparel and you're both selling to moms and their teen daughters. Those are two very different types of people. So you want to put their industry or situation so that the future prospective customer can see themselves in that situation. So instead of just Bob, it would say something like Bob Jones, laundromat owner for 15 years. That way, the next person who's a laundromat owner can say, oh, well, I've only been in business for 3 years, and here's Bob. He's also a laundromat owner. He's been in business for 15 years. He's seen a lot more than me, and he thinks this is great. Oh, wow, I should pay attention to this. Or it can be, Sally J, if you don't want to have the full name because it's consumer. Sally J, mom and career woman, something like that. Industry, situation, and then the reader can be like, well, I'm a mom and career woman too. I should listen to this. This person has something, they're like me, right? You want to think that the people who are like you are more likely to give the kind of testimonial that will be the same as your result. So the more specific you are, the realer it is. So where do you use these testimonials? Obviously on your website. I talked about all these different pages on your website you could put on there. Think about the overwhelming proof wall of testimonials. We talked about that. Put it in your marketing collateral. Put it in your presentations. Put it on your online profiles. Put it on your LinkedIn. Put it on your Facebook, wherever you've got an online profile. Put it in your customer welcome packet. People miss this. The testimonial isn't just about dragging them over the line on sales. Oh, there's a dog barking out there. The testimonial isn't just about dragging them over the line in sales. It's also the confirmation that they made a good purchase. So including testimonials post-purchase is a really valuable thing. You can include it in the customer welcome packet. You can deliver it to them as part of an email sequence. However you do it, continuing to show them that they made a good decision will help them through that valley of despair that they're going to go through, their instant purchase regret. As soon as they purchase, before they get the thing, there's this kind of regret that comes there. You want to keep them excited. And you keep them excited by reinforcing that they made a smart decision. And that's by using testimonials in their welcome packet or in the welcome materials and drip feeding it out and making sure they're continuing to see that other people got good results before they get their result. Because otherwise they're just waiting. They might get buyer's remorse. They might refund on you. They might try to quit. This is very frequent. But the more you can keep that excitement up and keep up their belief that they are going to get a great result, the better you're going to be. Email signature. People put testimonials in email signatures. It's a great way to do it as well. So that is the best way to get the results with testimonials. I want you to implement this as soon as possible. Having testimonials will help your sales like you will not believe. So now's the time to do it. Get going.